everybody. My name is Jordan, also known as JMonster, and if you just give me a few minutes here, we're going to get everything nice and set up, and then I will be previewing the entire Halloween asset pack and the things that you can expect to see in it. And that will be available today, sometime in the afternoon, around my crazy North American time. It's currently 10:46 for me, so hopefully I should be able to get it up within an hour or so. But yeah, I just want to link my stream in a few different places, and then we can begin. There's quite a lot to go over. As all told, the asset pack is going to include about 75 objects. Hello, Jazdeep, how are you today? But it's going to include about 75 objects, and you'll also be getting 5 maps made by the community. One of them was made by myself, and it will be the custom Dota map that I've been talking so much about over the last while. Oh, is it your birthday today? Well, fantastic news for you. We're going to be looking at some really cool stuff coming to Silmarillion Total War. And those are namely going to be a lot of the Halloween asset packs and the maps that we'll be having scenarios and other videos and stuff to show off a little bit later in the week. I am doing fantastic. I've been working for about 2 weeks straight on this project. And it's finally finished, and it's finally coming together, and I of course had some help from Stuart Dale and from WK and other people, but it's been a lot of work, and it's finally available for people to use. So I'm really excited to show off what we have, and then ultimately I'm really excited to see what people make of them and the kind of stuff that they create. So as I said, I'm just gonna link my stream here. It won't take me more than a few minutes, because of course I want to pull in the maximum number of people here. That shouldn't take me more than a few more seconds here. We should be good to go. All right, so we should be good to go there. So let's talk a little bit about what you can expect to see in this pack, which, as I mentioned, should be available a little bit later today. You can, once you install the pack, which is pretty easy, and it's also very easy to include into other mods other than Silmarillion Total War. Everything has been basically designed so that you can just port it into your mod if you're a modder, or if you play DAC and you want to make some Halloween maps, or you want to spice things up a little bit, or if you play Third Age Reforged, you should be able to just pop it in. Follow the directories are all the same throughout all the Medieval 2 mods, as far as I'm aware. And yeah, they'll have access to all of the custom Battle for Middle-earth 2 stuff that we've created, not created, but ported over. But once you install the mod, you will find that in addition to all of that cool stuff, you're going to find a little section here in your custom maps that are Halloween seasonal maps. One of them is like a siege battle, or it's like a cityscape. One of them is more of a field battle, but there's lots of like cliffs and terrain. Nuinhir Ruins is my Dota map, so you guys will be able to play around with that in your own time. The Ruins of Brathambar is the map that I'll be showing off to you a little bit later today as a proper video. We won't be streaming that. But it's like a ruined fishing village, and it's very, very atmospheric, and I recommend that you play around with the weather settings a little bit when you play on these maps. And then finally we have the Shattered Hills, which was made with the Elven assets predominantly, and it's like 3 separate hills, and they all have like ruins and like different ways up them. It's an interesting scenario map, and it's a pretty fun field map if you have some special rules. But yeah, so as I mentioned, there's custom weather settings that I recommend that you play around with. Normally you can't change them when you're just playing on these maps. You'll see that these are basically grayed out. If you go down to the siege maps, however, and you select, well, we're going to stick to summer. But if you specify your settings here, so let's do light fog, let's do sunset. Let's go goof around on the Ruins of Bthombar map. I'm just going to quickly show this off to you. I'm just making more players so that there's the maximum amount of playable area, so I can show off the whole map to you and not just a tiny little sectioned off area. Oops, don't want them all to be on the same team. Quickly look at these weather effects, just so you can see how the process works and what to expect. And then I'm going to go into the battle editor and I'm going to show off all 75 of the custom assets that we have. I'm going to talk a little bit about their usage and some of the weird bugs and stuff. Oh, there we go. So if you head over this way, you're going to see there's like a little ruined tower here. And a little bit farther down in these lowland areas, you're going to get into this barricaded, derelict town that was once obviously very large and very prosperous. And I have played on this a couple of times, and the spacing here between the buildings is definitely adequate. And you can move between ruins here. They're all quite intuitive that way. So you shouldn't have too much trouble maneuvering units on huge scale, which is what I recommend you play the mod on. Obviously that gets easier the smaller the unit scale tends to be, but it is still a cityscape map, and so expect lots of choke points and bottling up and that sort of thing. It's just a really, really nice map with a lot of detail that's been put into it. And so in addition to this little town area, you're going to come up here, there's some more ruins. Lots of ways up here, 2 to 3 ways I think on either side. So there's one there, there's 2 ways here, and then there's another 2 ways up here. But then off in the distance, you actually have a little watchtower, and that is something that you can interact with. You can go all the way up to it, you can fight here, you can make it last stands. Yeah, the map just has a really nice lived-in feel, and a lot of that comes down to the detail that you're able to add with the Halloween map packs. You can see some of the spider webs here. You can place these all individually. These little barricades here you can do individually, along with the stakes that already are in Medieval 2. Got little skeletons and stuff that you can place along the ground. But yeah, this is one of the maps. But now I want to show you everything off in excruciating detail, so you have to bear with me. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the bugs that I've noticed and things to expect in that regard as well. Now all the assets work, and you can place them and move them however you want to. They're all quite friendly, I suppose is a good word for it. They're not going to mess up your terrain too much. They're not going to cause crashes or anything like that, assuming that you've installed everything properly. My nephew is being born tomorrow. Oh my goodness. Well, I'm going to stop there for just a moment. Congratulations, Calvin. It's such a huge deal. I have 3 nephews myself, and they bring a lot with them. And it's generally very rewarding and a lot of fun. So big congratulations to you, my friend. That's fantastic. But let's move on to our assets here. And so, one of the important things is that we've organized them for you. And they're organized by this sort of HAL for Halloween classification, and then furthermore they're organized alphabetically. So the first thing we're going to look at is the little barricade here. You can move those and place them as you will. And now we're going to talk about some of the bugs. So as soon as we place this, boom, trees everywhere. Kind of irritating. I am looking into a fix for this. I am talking with some of the modders for IWTE, which is a program that I used to import these assets, but it can be used for many other things. WK creates a lot of his maps, his big cityscape sieges, in IWTE, and I'm lucky enough to be able to chat to them and to try and figure this out. So what each asset will do is place a ton of like vegetation. It's a little bit irritating, but you do have a vegetation tool. I recommend you crank it up to 100, and you just get rid of things when you're ready. So the first one is going to get rid of all the big trees, and you'll notice some of the smaller trees get left behind. And that's because with the new vegetation the Silmarillion Total War uses, these are actually just shrubs. They're classified as shrubs, although they are smaller trees. So you have a little bit of diversity there with your vegetation, which is helpful. But you'll have to go to the shrub tool in order to remove them. So then you just get rid of them all as much as you need to, like that. And we're going to repeat this process several times throughout. So one of the things, because of this bug, that I recommend that you do is when you're making your maps, place your vegetation last. So my Dota map, for example, has very specific pockets of vegetation. I was able to achieve that by putting everything down that I wanted first, all the little objects, all the terrain, etc., etc., and then getting rid of the vegetation. So after you've gone over the forest and the shrubs, then you're going to want to go down to small shrubs here, because you can see there's like little tiny things on the ground, and then you run that tool over. Which I realize is irritating, but if you do it as the last thing that you finish off when you're putting the like final details on your map, then you only really have to do this process once. I realize it's a pain in the ass, but it's just kind of that way. I don't know how to fix it currently. Believe me when I tell you that I have tried. Well, this project probably took about 2 weeks in total, and at least 2 to 3 days of that was spent trying to figure out what the hell was going on with that. But I digress. So let's get rid of the rest of those little tiny shrubs. And we're going to go back here. So the next thing we have, a little burnt stump here. It's called burnt stump, but really it's just a destroyed tree. And we've got some cocooned bodies as well for like spider victims and things like that. I'll place those more or less in front of the barricades. Got a few of them there, and then there's one other one that's actually, it says it's a skeleton, but when I converted it I realized that it was actually a cocooned victim. So I didn't really feel like going through the process of changing it again, because the object is in the game and it works. But yeah, so we got some cocooned bodies there. Next we're going to go to this little crypt ruin, and you're going to see this. It's not technically a crypt, but to me that looks like a mausoleum, and so that's what we're gonna be calling it. And we'll go into the various kinds of dead trees that you can find here. So there's one, there's two, and do note that at any time the battle editor, being the old girl that it is, has a tendency to crash. That's not a result of the assets. That's something I really want to make clear. That's just the battle editor. It's old. It crashes. This is why every time I talk about it, I recommend you save all the time. It's just something that happens. But there you go. You got a few dead trees there, and they supplement the one that already exists. That's going to be the burnt tree. So in total, you're going to have 6 of these little trees that you can place in order to make like dead groves and whatever it happens to be, just to add a little ambiance to your maps. After that, we've got this little dragon statue. We're going to put you in behind because you're a little bit bigger than a lot of the stuff. And this one is again from Battle for Middle-earth. Couldn't find the proper texture for it because their textures are just not indicative of what the thing actually is. It's very confusing. However, it does look good with that little brick. So I use the same brick, and like I kind of darken it a little bit to give it a kind of creepier feel, I suppose. Next, we've got ourselves a little ruin here. It's like a dwarven ruin. You can place that however you want to. Stick that guy in behind. And then we got some lamp trees. These are actually kind of cool. So the first one, it's gonna look like this. They're like little elven lamps, but since the trees are like, there's no foliage on them, they do look a little bit creepy, and that's why I decided ultimately to include them in this. And now we come to another one of the bugs. For some reason, this apparently has something to do with the alpha channels on the textures, although that is confusing to me because all of the trees use the same textures, but not all of them have this problem. So I don't really know what this is. I wasn't really able to fix it. It's not like game breaking or anything, and it's not all objects, obviously, because they don't all behave that way. There's maybe 3 or 4 that will do this. It looks a little weird, but it's kind of not the end of the world, and I didn't have any more time to spend trying to hunt down that bug and quash it ultimately. But yeah, so they all use the same texture, but they don't all do it. You can see that there. Little lamp tree. This one is going to do it as well. It's sort of the opposite to this one, but their trees are shaped a little bit differently. Next, we have these little statues. So there's a Lord statue, and there's like an Elven Maiden statue. She's got like a little bowl that she holds out front, which is pretty damn cool. And then we're going to come into some of the Elven Ruin pieces, and I think I've shown some of these off before, but let's go over them again, because I think there's probably some new ones. We got a little ruined archway here. This, again, is something you can interact with, so I've taken great care so that all of these ruins are intuitive. So if there's a hole in a ruin, generally 9 times out of 10, you will be able to pass through it, unless it's something that's so small that I deemed it not really worthy anyway, because it would cause pathfinding issues regardless of whether or not you could pass through it. So there's a little arch ruin. Got the wall ruin here. And you can pass through 3 points in this wall. First 2 of these archways right here. And the other one is here. And this is actually quite large. So you could like decrease the formation width of a unit and then quite easily pass them through here. So you can move through all of these, so they're not just sort of things that look pretty, there is potential gameplay consequences to them, and you can kind of plan your maps around that, which I thought was infinitely better than just having blocks that are universally impassable. Next we have an Elven Barn, which is kind of nice. There's some like spooky things in here where it's also Halloween. It's like a harvest festival for those of you that aren't North American. Yeah, this is kind of like the harvest time for us. So there are things like barns, and we're going to go into some other cool stuff later, don't you worry. Got a little battle tower here in case you want to make your own little elven villages. We've got some more ruin pieces here. These are a little bit different. These are more like Gondorian pieces, but I just called them elven ruins just because why not. This is the first stage after all. You got both of those there. And again, these are solid blocks. Like you can't pass through these. You can use them to create choke points. We got an arch tower here, which is kind of neat. This is again a solid block. There's no like logical way to pass through it. You got a little chunk here, which is kind of cool. You can use it to just block off areas, or to give the suggestion of like say a dome or a tower or something. Then we have a square, and this one's kind of cool, so let's put this one out front actually. So you can pass through this. This little area here I decided to leave open, so about to the wall or so. You can walk through this ruin pile. You can also walk through the archway, so you can use it as like a corner choke point or something. But it is still partially impassable and still, I think, intuitive to use because you can pass through the archways. And I left this open deliberately so you had a little bit more leeway and you didn't just get like stuck on this little corner. This is purely like a matter of convenience for you guys. But that's gonna do it for the square. We have another little archway here, and yes, you can pass through this. We got a little elven tree ruin. Maybe we'll put you right over here. It's like a little archways and stuff, and you should be able to pass under the archways. Although when you get to areas like this, then you won't be able to go through the tree, and because of the tree and the rock and things like that. The roots do block your path. Next, we have a little Entmoot, which is kind of cool. You might recognize that from Battle for Middle-earth. This is the building you would produce your Ents from, but it does sort of add a a creepy, mysterious vibe, because obviously these rocks have been placed deliberately, and this one has been shaped by something, so I thought it would be a worthwhile inclusion in a Halloween pack for that reason. And again, as Halloween is a harvest festival, we of course have little feast tables. So you got one there, and it's loaded with food and other goodies. And then there's another table in here as well. Let me just quickly look for it. Table set. Here we go. And you can place those all individually. Boop. And let's go back up here. We're at feast table. And then we get into some of the creepier buildings. So you got this little goblin cave here. I'm sure the Battle for Middle-earth players will immediately recognize this. It's kind of spooky. You can't go inside the cave. It's fully blocked off. This one is just to add a little bit of ambiance. Next, we've added some extra tents. So you got another gobbo tent here, which is kind of cool. You can place that however you like. We've got this little tower ruin. So let me move over this way and we'll try and keep like with like. We've got this big old thing here. And again, you can walk through the archway here. Like this is passable. Next, we have a Haradrim tent, which is kind of neat. There we go. Put that right there. And we've also got a Haradrim watchtower. So just spiky and evil looking. Next, we're going to move into some of the, I guess, like more harvesty assets. So I'm going to put the hay bale down here. And you can place as many of these as you want. Just be aware that if you place things everywhere, then there are performance issues. You need to be, like, you don't need to be cheap with how you place assets, but you need to be aware of the fact that if you overdo it, you will cause performance issues on your map. All of these things take up resources, and Medieval 2 is an old game. That's just something we can't get around. But yeah, you're going to have 3 hay bales there if you want, or 10, or whatever you want. You can make a map out of hay bales. And then move into some bigger stuff here. So I've got horse statue. You can use this to create entrances to bases, and you'll see this on my Dota map and in a few other different places. Let's see what's next. Got the little warg pit, which is here, and this one is really cool looking, but unfortunately it does suffer from that bug, so when you get close to it, it gets a little bit kind of weird looking. But from a distance, it looks just fine. Next, got a little lamppost here. Something you can use to add just like flavor to your maps. So I'll put that down there and get a good look at it. Yeah, nice little lamppost. Next, we've got a larger ruin chunk. So we're going to stick that over here with sort of the evil looking assets. And you can see that there. This one is mostly just to divide space. Again, it's impassable since there's no logical archway that you could move through as an infantryman or as anything. So that's just a big old block. Next, we have some sort of manish things here. We've got a lighthouse, which we saw in the preview for the Ruins of Berthombar map. Place the lighthouse there. Got a little thing, like a meat rack. No orcish camp is complete without these. I lean very heavily on them when I make maps. Gonna go look at it. Looks pretty decent. Next, we've got an old forest tree. I figured that we needed some centerpiece trees. So let's go over here and put it with the other trees then. We'll pop you right in here. There we go. And you can place that and you can move that however you want to. It can be rotated, etc., etc. Next, we've got some more orc scaffolding, and this is more of a supplement to the stuff that already exists in the mod. Like, there's tons of orc scaffolding that you can use to give things like a weird industrial feel, and it's kind of fun. I didn't do this one, so I'm not 100% sure on the pathfinding, but I think it is basically just an impassable barrier. And now we get into some of the really cute stuff. So where's our little hay bales? So this is a big thank you to Talrion, because this didn't exist until he made one. I requested like yesterday, and he's a busy guy, if he would make me a pumpkin mesh, and he did. And so I arranged them into little clusters because, as I mentioned before, every time you place a resource or an object, it takes up resources on the map. So this is mostly to help you economize by not having to place 50 pumpkins to make a pumpkin field. Now you can place 5 of these. And you should be good. You can have a few of those here. Why not? So you got some of your harvesting assets there. Then you have like a little rustic fence or a barricade you can use to keep out zombies or crows or whatever it happens to be. Put that right there. Got something bigger. We have finally we have a boat builder, which will be nice for making Falas maps and or whatever it is that you want to do. If you want to make like a little abandoned sort of European looking village, then this is helpful. We still have many more things to come. So let's do some more spooky assets, because why not? Got a little skeleton you can place there. I think I'd placed that one already, but we do have a second skeleton that you can place. And I actually have been using this plus the mud texture plus playing around with like height and stuff to make mass graves, which is very grim and very Halloween, but that is an option that's open to you. Like you can make some very creepy, suggestive stuff with these little like detailed objects and like tell stories on your map, which I think is a lot of fun. Next we have this big old spider lair, but why don't we move that over here to some of the more evil assets. And there you are. So a little spider lair, straight out of Battle for Middle-earth 2. And then we're going to come into some of the nice little finishing touches. So the spider webs, some of them don't have back faces, or they have transparent back faces, so you can only see them one way. So I recommend you put them on like corners and things like that, but you can really just do whatever you want with them. So there you go. We're going to add some webs to our little spider lair here. Just because we can. There you go. I got some more over here, and we'll like block off the entrance like that. Got another web cone that's there, that's over here, so we can just move that around till it's like in a place where we can see it. I think this is one of the ones with the transparent back faces. And there's this one here. Again, you can move that however you want it to be. And I think that's all of the spider webs, but there's lots there. Cover a lot of ground with those spider webs, and it does add like very nice sort of ambiance touches to the existing buildings that are already in the mod, or the things that are being added in the pack. So yeah, you can make things look old and derelict and abandoned pretty well just with spider webs alone. This one's kind of weird, but I don't know exactly what we'll do with it. But there are some tricks to using it. So let's just pop this down here. It's a little bit shiny. I might be able to fix that before all is said and done. But this one, because these aren't like working stairs, they're just kind of there, and there's pathfinding between the trees, what I recommend that you do when you use this is take your little landscape height tool, turn it to whatever strength is pleasing to you, and then just raise up the ground underneath of it. And you can either have it coming through the stairs to give it like a sort of overgrown feel, or you can like smooth it down in order to kind of hide the fact that there's terrain there. But you'll just have to play with this one. It's a little bit trickier to use, but it is pretty cool, and if you're feeling up to it, then you can definitely make it work. Yeah, and then we get into some other smaller touches. So if you want to make like a zombie holdout, that's what I had in mind when I saw these. You can put these little shields here, and these have pathfinding, and they have collision. So if you have units hiding behind the shield and there's arrows coming into the front of them, they will hit the front of the shield and they won't hurt the units that are shielded by this, so that it's functional, it works. Next, we got this little target range, which you can use in the same fashion, or you can just use it to add that a little extra something. We've got some stumps over here, so these probably belong with some of these like ruined trees and whatnot. So let's look at the little webbed stump there. Kind of cool. Nice for making like clear-cut areas, and I believe that these are pathfinding. I didn't personally do these two, but I'm pretty sure that Stuart would have done that. And I don't know if they both suffer from that weird bug, but one of them certainly does. Only one of them does. So there you go. Then we have the hunt lodges. These are like little wild men huts, but they can be orc huts, they can be bandit huts, they can be like hunting lodges, they can be really whatever you want them to be. And they do pair nicely with the meat rack. So we're going to put these there. And I think some of these huts suffer from that bug, just that one. Yeah, it's a little weird, but there's only like 5 or so assets that do it, so I didn't sweat it too much. And these 3 Wildman huts will supplement the one that already exists in the mod. So there you go. You can build those all together. But I think that's all of them so far. So that's a lot of individual stuff. We've like filled half the map basically with these. And you can use them over and over again and in tandem with things that we already have. Little skull signs that you can place here. Actually, these are quite, if you want to be clever with them, what I recommend you do is you hold down shift when you're on the height tool and then lower your mouse so that you drop things in below. And then you take the height tool. Turn that up just a little bit. And there you go. You've made a little cross. And you can use that for creating graves. I think these can be passed through. I'm like 90% sure, but they might not be. So be aware of that. That you might be creating impassable barriers when you kind of play around with like elevation and stuff like that. And that holds true for anything on this list. You can take those. You can use. You put the goblin tent. Hit Z reset the height, and you can use those with the goblin tents that already exists. Make little like tiny goblin settlements and things like that. We've got lots of orc towers in the game, so you can use those to create orcish settlements. There's a lot of new stuff that's being added here, but a lot of it was also carefully curated to work with things that we already have. So yeah, that's pretty important. Important thing to note is that it is supplemental, so you can use it with things that are already in the mod to make some pretty cool looking maps. A lot of these black buildings in particular go nicely with things like this that are in the mod by default. These are things that I converted a million years ago for a Reforged map, the Ruins of Dol Guldur. I don't know if you guys have played on that one, but that was made by me, and a lot of these things were imported specifically for that. Then we got some of the scaffolding that already exists, and blah-de-blah-de-blah. There's like a yurt. You can make like a little tent over here. Make some pretty decent little orcish settlements. We got at least 2 different kinds of orc fence that already exist, plus the ones that that you can see that we've added here. So there's that and that and some of the barricades and stuff. Did I miss anything? It's possible that I did. No, we got the spider layers. We got everything. Well, let's take a look at chat now. See what you guys think so far. Wally Wolf, hi. How am I doing? I'm doing very, very well. Thank you, Wally Wolf. I appreciate that. The Goblin Cave looks like the place where goblins would engage in cannibalism. Any time is a good time for goblin cannibalism. But let's see here. Yeah, I don't think I missed too much. But yeah, those are the things that you can expect. This is the sort of lineup here. There's a lot of detail that can be added to maps, and you're going to see that on the 5 maps that are included in the pack, and that will be available from our ModDB. And I'm going to keep that up for only a limited time, just for the season. So I'm going to keep it up for about a month after today, so 4 weeks after I post it. Then I will take it down, and then I'll put it up again next year. If you guys miss it, there will always, of course, be more next year, or you can always get it from someone who has it. But I do want to make it a seasonal event. I don't want to just leave it up forever. Plus, it incentivizes people a little bit to go and hang out on our ModDB. So I think that that's a good idea. In addition to this, there will be some other seasonal packs that will be coming to you. There will be a Christmas pack when the time comes. Probably won't be as expansive as this, because we add just so much stuff, and there's lots of like overlap that could be used for Christmas maps. But you will probably get something. This is about 75 objects. Oh, right, I also missed a few things. But this is about 75 or so objects, plus the things I'm going to show you here. So it'll probably be about a third of that. There'll be like some lumber camps and some like Christmas trees and some other things. But in addition to all of this stuff that we've converted here, I almost forgot. Under the ambient tab, all these things are located under ambient misc, by the way. Under the ambient tab, you're going to find 6 or so little creepy looking assets. And these were actually lent to us by the Botet team, so a big thank you to them for allowing us to use their assets. And they have them multiple times, and they're just awesome. They're just generally great. But these things I specifically got permission to use. Got a little chaos tower here. And you've got a variant of that. We've got a couple of altars that we'll put out in front. And do bear in mind that if you don't like the elevation on these, you can always lower it and then you raise the terrain manually. But I'm not going to do that, just because I want to show them off to you. I've got the beacon. I got this little tower altar looking thing here, which I'm sure you guys will find many, many uses for. The terrain on it is a little bit weird, so you will have to like work with this one a little bit more, but it's definitely worth it. It's a beautiful little asset. Got this creepy altar here, so you can make like sacrifices and like surround it with skeletons, or make it like an old forgotten altar or something like that. Put some spider webs on it, and there's lots that you can do. Another little altar over here. See, it's built out of like skulls and shields, and there's like offerings here of like bone and weapons of fallen enemies. Got this shrine. It's got a little bit of a chaos symbol on it. The I guess it's the 7-pointed star, the 8-pointed star, or something like that. So if that kind of turns you off, then you don't necessarily have to use it. Like if having the chaos imagery in a Lord of the Rings game is just like too much for you, then you don't have to use it. Not all of these have chaos sort of symbolism on it, but I wanted to add all of them because they all look good. You got these kind of creepy like spiked towers here, and these don't actually like look like they look fantastic, but there's no like markings of chaos on them that would preclude you from using them with something like this, for example, or with these ruins that you see over here. So yeah, a ton of stuff. All this will be available in our ModDB. I'm going to link that to you right now. It's not up yet, but if you follow us on the page, you will get an update, or if you just want to check throughout the day and see if it's finally available, then that's an option as well. That's our ModDB there. And if you want to get involved in our community, I recommend that you do so through our Silmarillion Discord. Our community is growing, but it's not like massive at the moment. So if you want to get games in, you will probably have to organize them through our Discord. That's the best way to do it, because there's not like just like lobbies floating around. It's not a massive community just yet. But I'm on there, and all of our usual suspects that you see in Silmarillion videos are on there, and we're all pretty active. So if you guys want to play some games with us, by all means, stop by our Discord. I'll get you that link right now. And you can find us there. Well, that's pretty well going to be it from me. I hope you guys have enjoyed this so far. Hope you're excited for Halloween. And as I said, the asset pack will be available soon, and it's going to have all of the maps. I previewed one of them today, and it's going to have all of these things available for you to play with in your battle editor. It occurs to me just now that the battle editor is something that you have to unlock in your text files. And so I can explain to you briefly how to do that. It is actually quite simple. So what you're going to do is go into your Medieval 2 preference file, and that's going to be located in your main Medieval 2 directory. So if you go to Steam, Steam Apps, Common, Medieval 2 Total War, that's the folder you need to be in. You're going to find your preference just underneath your exe files, medieval2.preference. You're going to pop that open, and you're going to go down to the little features tab, or you can just copy and paste it. I'll send you a link in the chat here as well, since I can't show it to you on video since I don't have it set up to record my desktop. And you're going to copy and paste features editor equals true, and that's going to enable your battle editor. And then you can play around with all of our templates. You can make scenarios. You can do all of that fun stuff. And you can find an easy to do guide on that just right here. It's like a one-step process. Yeah, shouldn't be too hard to figure out. But in any case, my name is Jordan, also known as JMonster. I hope you guys are excited for this, as I said, and I will see you next time.